Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another episode of how to improve your art. So today we're going to be talking about reference photos, how to use them, common mistakes beginners use, and ultimately how to use them to make your art better. So let's get started. I'm also going to show you some demos of how you can get from here to here using reference photos. So first, what is a reference photo? Basically, a reference photo is any photo that you can use to build your visual library. I'm going to define that in a second, so hold on. But basically, a reference photo is just anything that you can look back on to reference what you're drawing. They help you visualize what you're drawing so you can draw it again in the future, and they also help you nail down those hard to draw things or hard to draw poses. So what is a visual library? A visual library is a term artists use to describe your mental knowledge of how things should be drawn. For example, you may have a big visual library on what faces look like because you see them every day. You know that the eyes go here, the nose goes there, the mouth goes there, and you can kind of build off that. However, you may not have a big visual library on something like owls. You may have a vague idea of what an owl looks like because you've seen some pictures of them, but not enough to be able to recreate it in your art. That's where reference photos come in. All right, so now that we've got that taken care of, let's get right into the demos. Demo number 1. Here I am drawing an owl totally from memory. I vaguely know what an owl looks like, but to be honest, it's a bit of a struggle. You'll notice that I'm not very confident in my line work, and the overall drawing is very simple. I don't have a very good visual library built up of what an owl actually looks like or what shapes make up the owl. I'm just going from pictures I've remembered or maybe videos I've seen and trying to piece those foggy memories together in order to draw an owl. This is not the best way to go about drawing something new because, as you'll see, I got a lot of things wrong with this drawing, and like I mentioned, it's very simple. It's not actually what an owl looks like, and if I were to continue drawing owls like this, I would learn bad habits that would kind of just stick, and I wouldn't actually learn how to draw an owl. I would just be drawing this vague owl-like thing for the rest of forever. Demo number 2. So this is how I see most new artists use reference photos. What I've done here is I've chosen a reference photo, and it's not a bad photo, but the techniques I'm using are not the best. What I'm doing is I'm directly copying the photo onto my paper, line for line, shape for shape. I'm not thinking about how the owl is actually made up. I'm just thinking about how I can replicate it best onto my paper. By doing this, I'm not learning anything, and I'm not building my visual library. What if I wanted to draw the owl in a different pose or a different angle? I would be back to square one, and I'd have to find a whole new reference photo, copy that onto the paper, and rinse and repeat for everything I wanted to draw, basically. I'm not building the skills that I need to be a better artist. If anything, I'm just learning how to copy better. And that's not quite what you want. You want to be able to know how things work, know how shapes work, and be able to build things using your visual library. By copying, and like I said, a lot of artists start off by doing this, so if you do this, don't feel bad. But there's much better ways to use reference photos, which is what I'm going to teach you next. Demo 3. So here I've chosen not just one, but many different reference photos of owls, and I've made sure to choose photos that show owls in different poses, different angles, even different species, different shapes and sizes. Basically, you want to get as many diverse pictures as possible. Now what I do is I take the photos and I study them, and I break the owl down into basic shapes. So when I look at an owl, I see a circle for the head, I see more of an oval shape for the body. That's basically what you can build the rest of the owl off of. By doing this, I'm gaining a better understanding of how the shapes make up the form of the owl. When you're looking at reference photos, instead of copying the image exactly like I did in the last demo, you want to simplify the image simplify it into basic shapes, because then you'll be able to recreate it in any way. So instead of thinking, I'm going to draw an owl, you can think, okay, I'm going to draw an oval on top of an oval. That makes it a lot easier for your brain to kind of deal with drawing something totally new. So once you have like the basic shapes of the owl, you can then go in and add details. For example, sometimes I may draw the eye just by itself, or maybe the beak or the wing, so I can get those details right. And then I take those details and I'm still using the same techniques that I was using before. The eye is a circle with a line that cuts it off. The beak is a triangle with some smaller triangles cut into it. The wing is a series of ovals. This is all building your visual library, and this is all going to help you learn what shapes make up the owl so that you can recreate it. Using reference photos is all about taking something, breaking it down, simplifying it, and then recreating it yourself. And the more you do this, the easier it's going to become and the more natural. You'll be able to implement some of your style into it, maybe get more detailed as you go along. But if you're starting to draw something new, this is how you want to start using reference photos. And this can be done with anything, not just owls. The human body is a series of circles and squares and ovals. The environment is a bunch of lines, circles, cylinders. Even cities are mostly just rectangles and trapezoids. You can break down anything into simpler shapes, and then it's so much easier to learn how to draw a series of shapes than to draw a whole owl from scratch. This is my favorite way to use reference photos because it builds my visual library and it just makes it so much easier. And now in the future, I know better how to build an owl from scratch. I'm not as lost as I once was. I know what shapes make up the owl, and I can better put those shapes together to form the owl that I need for my art. Demo 4. Now what I've done is I've taken away all the reference photos and I'm drawing the owl from memory again. Except this time, I have a much bigger visual library. You can see such a difference from the very first owl that I did compared to this owl. And the only thing that's changed, I'm not looking at any reference picture for either of them, but the thing that's changed is I now have a much bigger visual library of owls. I know what they look like more, I know the different shapes that make up the owl, I know how the pieces fit together and how they work. Again, it's not going to be perfect, and it's going to be a little wonky the first few times, so it's so important to be always building your visual library. Always find reference pictures, always be looking for more references, be looking for images, be looking for video. If you can, go out and draw from life. It is so much more beneficial if you can draw from life, but I mean, I don't really have access to a live owl, so I do what I can. I'm actually pretty proud of how extreme the difference is between the two owls, and I learned a lot about how owls are made up, if that makes sense. Especially the wings. I wasn't really sure at all how the wings fit on the owl, and I just kind of slapped them on the first time, and now I have so much of a better understanding of how they fit on the rest of the body. And that's only because I took the time to look at reference photos and I broke them down into simple shapes that I could recreate to draw my own owl. Alright, so that's it for this video. I hope you guys found it useful. I hope you guys go out and find some awesome reference photos and draw some things that you haven't drawn before and build those visual libraries. Always be building your visual library and consuming as much media and as much reference as you possibly can. Also, remember, it's a good idea to draw from life as well. If you want, I can make a separate video on drawing from life and different exercises you can do that way. But yeah, I hope this video was useful to you guys. If you have any suggestions for the next episode of how to improve your art, leave them down below. Also, give this video a like if you enjoyed it and if it helped you, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye guys!